Now let us talk the next important issue, granuloma. So what is granuloma basically? It has epithelioid cells, giant cells in a chronic inflammation, etc., etc. But PMNs are not a part of it. PMNs are a feature of acute inflammation, not a chronic inflammation, and granuloma is a hallmark of chronic inflammatory state is what need to be remembered. So this shows how basically the various contributors for the final granuloma formation, pathophysiology, the pictorial, you have to quickly review. Now there are Langerhans type of giant cell, and how to recognize that? It has got 10 to 15 nuclei in the periphery of the cell which characterize the Langerhans cell. Now what is a non-caseating granuloma? Where do you find it? We find it in byssinosis, Hodgkin's, and TB can produce both caseous and non-caseous also. Not that always it need to be caseous in nature, but carcinoma lung does not produce any granuloma as such. It produces cavitating lesion. Which variety produces cavitatory lesions? Squamous cell carcinoma. Squamous cell carcinoma lead to cavitary lesions is what need to be remembered. So granulomatous inflammation is a feature of tuberculosis, leprosy, and Yersinia pestis, not a mycoplasma like less ambitious organism which has no cell wall, no address, no place to stay. It can't cause granuloma. Basically, what is the reason some infections lead to granuloma, doctor? Granuloma is the host response to contain the spread of infection, fundamentally. If you ask, if your pathology student asks you why granulomas are formed for TB but not for malaria, what is your answer? I still remember asking it to my pathology PG. Of course, our pathology PG was the most disoriented PG we had. He said, first of all, I don't know difference between granuloma and granulomatous reaction. On the top of it, sarcoidosis is caseating or non-caseating. I have my own thing to answer. So it's like that. In medicine, a lot of things are like that. So try to remember like that and forget them like that. So from then onwards, we made a habit of, okay, don't ask. So that kind of thing. So you must be sure of causes of granuloma. But actual reason is that's a way to contain. And a more virulent organism granuloma will form, or a less virulent? It's a less virulent. It's a less virulent organism, easy to contain. More virulent means where will it listen? Meningococcus, can you form granuloma? No. Before you form granuloma, it will shoot endotoxins and then kill the immune system and go ahead and finally will cause a adrenal hemorrhage and kill you. So you can't form for a highly virulent organism. Luckily our TB fellow is a very good brother. Now epithelioid cells, multinucleated giant cells, they are all basically derived from monocyte macrophage system, as all of you know very well. So in acute infection, there is a margination, vasodilatation, exudation, no granuloma. Granuloma is a feature of chronic inflammation. That's what we had been emphasizing about. Epithelioid granuloma is a feature of sarcoidosis, tuberculosis, pneumocystis, but not Hodgkin's lymphoma, which we have already discussed. And what is the constituent of granuloma, epithelioid granuloma? It is a helper T cells which basically undergo transformation. Where do you find caseation? Tuberculosis, leprosy, histoplasma, in fact all of them have got a caseous component. But what is the difference between sarcoidosis and TB? Non-caseous granuloma is a feature of sarcoidosis. Generally caseous is very typical of the TB is what you need to be very, very sure about.